Welcome to our garden, our low maintenance raised bed garden, year 3. So if you've watched our previous videos, you've seen how we started out building just 1 or 2 beds. We found out we needed a deer fence. So the next year we did the deer fence, we added some more beds and the starting of an automatic watering system. This year we were able to finish the fence, all the permanent beds that we're going to use, and really put most of them to work this year, although you'll see that we're still kind of figuring things out. So I like to take a summer tour because that's when the garden's at its best, and I think our last one was before anything was planted. So we're kind of in August, so it's the height of the garden here in the Pacific Northwest. So August and September are really our big harvest and preserving times, so it's kind of when the garden comes into its own. And I'm just going to take you on a tour and just show you everything we've accomplished in the last 3 years in this new garden at the farmhouse. And we're going to also show you some things that we haven't gotten done. And the wind is blowing, so there you have it. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around and take you on a little tour, and then we'll stop and talk about some things along the way. This is the garden gate, the front of the garden that people can see when they drive up our driveway. So this is what everybody sees, and this is what I've been showing in the photos on social media and the blog. But I'm going to take you back a few more feet to where I don't usually show you, and you can see that all this area right here is still plastic. So we have a cement driveway and then this weird shape, and some of you might remember that this whole area was an old manufactured home that the people that we bought the property from had to remove. So this was just a big gravel bed, and it was a big gravel bed that grew weeds like crazy. So the only way I can keep them down is to cover them with plastic. It's a weird space, this is. I kind of want to fill it with more cement, at least to here, and then do more wood chips, but this is too much wood chips. So for now, it's black plastic, and I don't really show it to you guys. Also, that's our shed, our little garden shed. We have big plans for that one day to look really cute. Right now, it doesn't. But it does hold our cardboard. I've showed that to you before, and different things like that. And we moved it from another part of the property to here so that it could one day be a really cute shed attached to our garden. So now that you've seen what we still have yet to do, this is what we've accomplished. So these beds are new this year. All this wood chip is new this year. These are outside the deer fence. So I have planted onions in one of them, and they didn't grow very well. So there's a number of reasons why they didn't grow well this year. One of them is because even though the deer don't eat them, they do test them. The other thing is I didn't really do I did too much mulch and not enough soil. It's partly my fault, and I have hopes that this is going to change next year. Over here we have asparagus and pumpkins that the deer, again, don't eat. However, they do sometimes test them, which you can see right there. They're testing. Over here, I've shared this in my newsletter that more deer testing is going on. We've got marigolds that they don't eat, rhubarb, and artichokes. However, they've walked in the center of the artichokes, and they've broken a few leaves off the rhubarb, but you can see it's a pretty healthy big rhubarb. I was a tad bit disappointed because some rhubarb is more red than others, and this one is really green. I thought it was a red Victoria, but it must have been mislabeled, so it's pretty green. It doesn't really affect anything other than the color of your baked goods, which I kind of like, but there you have it. It's pretty healthy. So, okay, so let's go into the garden. Brian finished this arbor for the garden gate, and I planted this grape. It's a Himrod, so that's a green seedless grape, and we grew that in our last property, and they're delicious. So that will grow over the top of this and probably along the fence because grapes are pretty, you need a huge arbor for grapes, we've learned. Okay, and walking in, you can see right to the right is our patio, our finished broken concrete patio, which we have a whole tutorial on that, which I'll provide a link in the description. And here are my metal raised beds. I really like the look of the metal raised beds. I haven't talked a lot about these because I don't like the construction. I was kind of disappointed. They were cheaper than troughs that I wanted, but see that? The water and the dirt, and even sometimes roots of plants like the strawberry things will come through the outside. So if it was on something other, like if it was on gravel and I had dirt leaking through, I would not be happy about that. So I haven't really endorsed these, although they are pretty cool looking, I think. When you first walk in, to the left is kind of it's just our holding. This is going to be kind of like a holding bed for plants. I envision a potting shed there and maybe a cover for it. So we've got plans still for that. And then I just filled in all the different areas. We have lots of rocks, so I just use rocks for raised beds. And I have a berry growing there and some sunflowers. These are two of my they're 2-foot by 12-foot beds. And I've got an article about how to grow tomatoes and a video, and I'll link that, as well as using the hog cattle panels and bungee cords. So when I did the video on how to use them to trellis your plants, they were not nearly this tall. You can see now they're 6 feet, more over 6 feet tall. And they become a bit harder to trellis, but you can see the bungee cord, and it's holding this up. And you just keep adding bungee cords as you need, or you keep moving these as you need them. You can see one here, and they kind of hold the plant. And then I have another one up here holding the plant. Oh, it's kind of hard to see in there. But you get the idea that you just kind of keep adding them. And I find it a lot easier to do this than trying to keep them in those rickety metal cages. So here's our round rock bed. This is one of the first beds that I finished when we were doing it, using the rock on our property. I grow basil in here. It really loves it. And in the center, it's hard to harvest, so I do pretty flat sunflowers, and I had a clematis in the spring. I just do overflow things here. So I've got zucchini, I've got tomatillo. This was a volunteer tomatillo from the one I planted last year, so that's fun. I just let them grow. I transplanted it to a better spot. And I've just grown a couple of fun flowers. This is one I haven't ever grown before. It's called sapengloss. I'm not sure I've said that the right way, but they're really gorgeous. They're very, very pretty. They come in shades of purple and white and yellow. They don't make a really great cut flower, unfortunately. They kind of last only a day or two, but they're very pretty. And I got those from Baker Creek Seeds, so that was kind of fun. Here's my other two beds, long ones. These grow beans. So I've got Vortex on this side, and my favorite Emerite I have to pick later today. These are ready to be picked. So, and then at the end of it, I have cucumbers. I don't know which way to go to show you the cucumbers, but we'll come around the other way and show them. But that's my trellis cucumbers that you grow on you grow up. That's the way to do it. And I'll link to that article too, because there's 5 reasons why you grow them, and taking up less space isn't one of them. There's really good reasons to grow your cucumbers up. Also, we've got over here a long bed, and this is really meant to grow hydrangeas and other flowers that the deer eat and that I want to have. So I've got a couple of pumpkins planted in here now while I start growing flowers and things. Okay, so then we come to kind of our main garden bed row. These are the ones we finished in that first year, were these. And we planted raspberries in this bed, triple crown thornless blackberries here, which I have to prune the tops. I need to prune those. You can prune those all here to keep them at the level you want. I wanted to mention about these raspberries that I'm growing. All of a sudden the names escaped me. It's an everbearing. It's a typical everbearing raspberry. And I had a small little harvest in June and July, but now they're coming on big. And I really wanted to point out this one, this fall gold raspberry. Some of them are called Fall Gold, and this one I think is called Anne, but they are gold. They're golden. They're golden raspberries, and they are a delicious flavor. But more importantly, they have been producing, look at those, they have been producing this big, like a lot of raspberries since June. So I'm getting a full summer's full of raspberries from them, and not just two separate harvests like I am with the red. So if you have room to, and that's just one, I've only planted one. So even if you have room for one berry, try the Fall Gold, or the Anne, I think is the other name of them. So here you can see that I've started some fall lettuces, and I've covered them with a row cover. Shade cloth would work too. I didn't have shade cloth, so I just wet this down every day or every other day. You can just do the water right on top of it, and that hopefully will help keep it cool. I started the starts in a pot, in a container, but outdoors, not indoors, and then when they got big enough, I transplanted them. I kind of kept them in the shade as we had the hot weather. This bed was our spring peas and a different kind of broccoli that I tried, again from Baker Creek Seed. It's kind of a combo, they said, of asparagus and broccoli, and you're supposed to be able to eat the whole tender stalk, which we have, and they're good, but you don't get a lot from the few that I did, so we haven't had them just alone. So I took down all the dead snap peas, and then I had started snow peas in my container, and we'll see if those take off. I'm iffy on fall peas. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I've also got some Chinese cabbage starts planted, and in this was our cabbage. I pulled out our cabbage and I've replanted with fall cabbage and a few broccoli. So I wanted to mention the broccoli because I do, at least in the Pacific Northwest, you can harvest your main head of broccoli, and if you look for the varieties that have multiple side shoots, you can continue to harvest shoots like this all summer long. All summer long. I don't really have to replant. They'll go until the frost kills them. This year, this was the only one that lived that I seeded. This is an Acadia broccoli. It's one of my favorites. It does a really nice head and then a lot of pretty big side shoots. But I had to buy some, and the only one they had was a combo between a heading broccoli and a broccoli rabe. And so the side shoots are all really little, kind of spindly. But we just have been picking them and enjoying them. They've been going like gangbusters. Like we've had bags and bags full of them for our salads and stir fries and things. So that works too. But I did want to mention that broccoli is an all season long plant for me. I don't have to really replant it if I don't want a large big head again. And then finally we have the pepper bed. And this pepper bed was covered, you might remember from the spring, it was covered with a row cover until pretty much July, when I knew that it was safe to take it off. And you can see the plants have loved it. Like, they loved being covered up like that. They're just producing like crazy. I've got jalapenos. I've got Anaheims here that are just big and gorgeous. I can't even find them to show you. Oh, here. There we go. Really pretty. Then I've got some little ones, little orange guys. I've already picked the ones that I've had 7 ripe ones from these, and they've got a lot more on them that are ready to go. And then I've got a couple of bell peppers, and I only like bell peppers when they're ripe, and green bell peppers are just unripe red or yellow peppers. So I wait for them to ripen, and we don't get very many of those in the Pacific Northwest, so I only have a couple plants of those. The reason I like the small ones is because they start ripening now, and I'll get a lot more of them, so that's pretty cool. I had an extra tomato seedling, and I just put it here in one of those rickety tomato cages, and I had to then put rebar in and hope that it's going to hold up. And yeah, it's producing too, so it's an extra one. Yeah, so that's our garden. I'm really thrilled with how it is. It really doesn't take much of our time at all. It really has proved to be really low maintenance. I'm so grateful that we got everything covered, because the weeds have been, you know, here and there, much easier to deal with. I'll have to do another layer. You can see kind of, this is the newer bark and that's the older. So I'll do another layer probably, probably not even until next spring. So kind of that's our garden tour of our raised beds in the middle of August in our 3rd year, and I'm really pleased with how much we've been able to grow in a much smaller space than our last garden, and how much less time it's really taking us. So it was a lot of time investment in the beginning to get the whole framework set, but now that it's set, it's really going to take over the long haul a lot less time. And so then that at least leaves me time for the fun stuff, which is like planning and planting and harvesting and kind of puttering. I like to come out in the mornings and just kind of like look and see what's ready to be harvested, what needs to be clipped. It's a really nice time. It's a very soothing, like if you're feeling stressed in today's kind of crazy world, if you have a place to go that's quiet and maintained and just showing life growing, I can't recommend it highly enough. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comments below. I check them, I answer them, and if there's something else you'd like to see, you know, mention that. I'd be happy to try to help you with that. But definitely keep tuning in, because we're going to keep putting up more gardening and preserving and recipes and DIY here, and so I'd love to have you following along. So if you want to subscribe, hit that button and tell your friends. All right, happy gardening.